I'm just going to try and test some wiring for a little control panel, but I thought I would cover quick soldering 101 because everyone likes being taught how to solder. Everyone does it differently. Clean, bright, stripped wire. I've just given it a light twist together just to hold everything together. Little iron. This is 18 watts. The other thing is it's got a silicon flex, which means if you touch it together it doesn't melt, and that's handy. The other one is always keep the tip clean and shiny, and always keep it wet. So to solder wire onto a little push button, you see a lot of people trying to tin wire, you know, and yes, it works. I've put a little burn mark on the table. It isn't great, obviously. After you've done 1,000 of them, you need a new table. The easiest way: bend the solder up, touch iron to solder so the tip's wet, touch the wire onto it, and away it goes. You shouldn't need to rub solder up and down it. It should wick into the wire perfectly easily. And similarly for the switch. And it saves that stupid thing of needing 3 hands. Obviously now I want to touch my nicely tinned solder to the switch, and again I don't really want to be doing that. Since the heat's driven the insulation back a little bit, I'm just going to trim it down. Numerous things, obviously little helping hands. You can do this whichever way works. That's going to be a hard shape to clip. And then just, again, tip still wet. Touch them together. Hold it. And that's it. And you end up with a nice bright clean solder connection. Different ways of doing it. Obviously another one, if I want, I can probably get that to jam in there. A little bit of solder on the tip of the iron, get some heat on it. Ta-da! Grab the next wire, which we'll go with blue. Give that a little clean. Doesn't really work trying to show it upside down. Get the wire nicely tinned. Trim the end off. I do actually have proper wire cutters and wire strippers and everything, and for some reason I'm using the big chunky pliers. And then just a little blob of solder. Done. And it's as easy as that once you've done 1,000,000 of them. Okay, so there I go. 3 little switches just wired on. They're a little bit rough and ready with the wires and the colours because they are just for testing, so it doesn't really matter. Using these because I happen to have a bag of them of different colours, and they just look a little bit nicer than that sort of little push button. It is going to make the panel bigger, which is questionable. And then the other thing I've done is just put tails onto that little LED. So I've printed a little holder for the rectangular one, and the idea is obviously it will sit in line with the track rather than just being a dot. And although it's smaller, it kind of mimics the shape of the switches. So that's just a test, and then those are for testing. So we've been back at it. I had to admit defeat and get the sort of help sheet from DCC Concepts on how to wire up their point motors. This is actually aimed for using their diode matrix, which I haven't done. I've cobbled it together just to check that it was all going to work how I wanted it to, first of all. And it does. So as you can see there, it's sort of root setting. So 2 point motors, 3 switches, and that then translates to the 3-way turnout. So as I say, I've very much just thrown this together. So there's a whole pile of joints with diodes in between bits, and so that's controlling the point motors. This is just providing a little bit of power to that LED just to see what it looked like in its new little housing, and I quite like those. Obviously they give a line, so you'll have a couple around the switches, and it's just different to having a round LED. And since I've got a printer, may as well. This mess of wiring will eventually get changed over onto some tag strip. So I'll solder all of the diodes I need in between, and then little tails going into each point motor, and then just a very simple connection coming out to the switch panel. And that's exactly what the DCC Concepts diode matrix kit is designed to do. And I may want, if I hadn't got the bits to do it by hand, I probably would have looked at this because it would be easier. And there is going to be some more interlocking, because obviously whenever I select this track, well, there's no point selecting just 2 inches, so it needs to fire that. But then I'll need to be able to select this track without it messing up the other ones. So interlocking is going to be fun. But importantly now, I think that's track 3 selected. If I select track 1, changes over, and with a very light wagon it's quite easy to push it off the track. Select track 2, just one of them changes, and you can select either one that you need. I did consider having basically an up and down switch, so you would have just, kept paging it up to get, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And then I thought, well, no, because most likely I'm going to be sending a loco down a track and suddenly realise the point's set the wrong way. So let's go for the quickest option. Similarly, on the symmetrical point, there is the possibility to interlock the second one, so it won't move unless... No. Interlock the second point motor with the first one, so the first one won't move unless the second one's set in the right position. But I was just happy to get this working tonight. That will get changed into a proper panel eventually. And it's basically going to control this end of the station, that end of the station, and I might just put sort of switches without a diagram for there's a crossover to get onto the sidings up there. And similarly, the top point on the branch line, just so that from this location, then if I send a train out up the branch line, I can control the point that it's going to go and then take it round into that station. The other station that's up here is probably going to be rebuilt because it was built for the last house and it's a bit neat. If I could just make the platforms longer and give the runaround loop more than a wagon would be kind of useful. Since there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points in quite a close area, I'd probably just leave this as manual. I might try and piano wire it down to the front panel so that, you know, if I want to shunt stuff in here, I'm going to have to be close anyway. So maybe the first one will get a point motor again, just so that I can guarantee that when I'm sending something up here, it's got somewhere to go. But for now, that's going to do. So I'm quite happy with that. Now just to draw up a mimic panel and try and tidy up the wiring for all of this. And as I say, I quite like those LEDs though. So we'll probably run with that idea, mainly because I bought a bag of rectangular LEDs and I've no other purpose for them. So that's fun. Anyway, cheers for watching. Hope you're finding it amusing or interesting. Bye.